Hello everyone and welcome to the newest game that we are starting here on the YouTubes. We are going to be doing Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and I'm very, very excited, even though I found out that we don't actually get to do a heist, you get to find out about a heist. But anyway, it's still going to be awesome. Yes, I think the first thing that I want to do is just briefly lay out what the Session 0 goals are. What I would like to see happen is for each of the players to have a chance to explain the backgrounds and their characters to each other. Because I think it'll help with a group cohesion. If we can find ways to have you guys have some connections before we start the game, then it'll just feel like you're more naturally a group, I think, coming into it. So once we understand your background, you can tell each of us, too, how you relate to Waterdeep, if at all. Like, are you from Waterdeep, or are you visiting? Are you a stranger? Have you lived there for a long time? And then what I will do is I'll talk a little bit about the city. I'll tell you about, we'll go over some of the factions, some of the guilds, and look for ways to connect what you've described about your character to the city. And then also look for ways that maybe your characters have interacted before, or have met, or have some kind of previous relationship. So that way it's not a group of strangers who just all show up together to take on adventures. So I guess with that, we really can go in whatever order we want, but I see here from, you guys should be, if you've logged in, you should be on the map of Waterdeep, if you want to, and we will go over the different quarters of the city, not extensively, but enough to where you feel like you would know the good parts of town versus if you needed to do some shady business where you would need to go, and we'll look at some of those. So I think we're just going to go in the order that is presented to me here in Roll20. So yeah, hi Nadon, that's you up first. Would you like to talk? Are you ready to talk about your character?
Yeah. Okay. I'll start off. I am playing Clue, a tiefling rogue detective with a lot of scare quotes around the detective part.
Okay.
He grew up in Waterdeep. He grew up, well, technically Field Ward isn't official Waterdeep, but grew up around there.
Okay.
Learned to be fast with his hands and quick-witted, and actually made enough money to actually move to the Dock Ward later in his life, and officially part of Waterdeep now.
All right, so he's a tax-paying, he's a resident citizen paying his residence tax. He's not living out in the Field Ward anymore. He's down in the much more fashionable Dock Ward.
Hey, it has plumbing, which is an improvement.
Excellent. Okay. And your character is Clue, right? That's their name? And they are lifetime Waterdeep residents. What kind of business are they? How do they get by?
Well, they are mostly information broker. They are very well connected in like criminal circles and can kind of play info through to people who aren't as familiar with the shadier parts of the city. Oh,
okay. All right. Well, we'll have to look at, some of the factions that you might have some at least brushing contact with, or people people who know people kind of situation. Right. All right, Ahana.
Right. I am playing Thelvar, who is a magus, which is a class I've converted from Pathfinder. And I think the easiest way to explain Thelvar is to just read the entire backstory that I've created for him, because there's a lot of info in there that will explain everything and will give you a clue of some of the work you're going to have to end up doing. Right. So, tragedy has long plagued the noble Mordragane family, landowners of the settlement now known as Hadar's Folly, and the surrounding lands that lay to the east of Amphill along the banks of the river Desserin. Starting from the First Lord Hadar Mordragane, who mysteriously fell into a river while inspecting that day's silver chalice catch, which is a local delicacy fish that is rather a prized catch, He was carried downstream rapidly in a swell to be dashed against some jagged rocks and killed. Every Lord of Hadar's Folly has since met a sticky end in unexplained ways within 5 years of becoming Lord. It wasn't long before the family got a reputation for being cursed. Over the decades, many members of the families have studied the arcane and the occult in an effort to uncover the source of the family curse and end it, without much success. 2 years after Thelvar was born, his grandfather, Belon, lost his life when a decorative suit of armour and volage collapsed on top of him, beheading him. Oh. One year later, Thelvar's father, Osman, took up the title, only to die 5 years later when he fell from the upper landing to the central hall below, snapping his neck. 8-year-old Thelvar was the one who to discover his father's body. Looming over the body was a ghastly apparition. When Thelvar screamed in terror, the apparition seemed to turn towards him before flying off and through a wall. As Thelvar was too young to take on the role of Lord of Hadar's Folly, a courier was dispatched to deliver a message to Osman's brother, Malkia, to rule the land as Lord Stewart till Thelvar was an appropriate age. As the adventurer and explorer was off on one of his excursions, it took 2 years before he finally made his way to Hadar's Folly and took up the role of Lord Stewart. This arcane trickster took the young Thelvar under his wing, raising him as though he were his own son. During this time, Thelvar began seeing ghosts and spirits that no one else could see. Though benign, the spirits were nevertheless bothersome, constantly giving Thelvar advice and guidance that were often less than useful. Thelvar took interest in his uncle's magic and convinced him to teach him a little of the arcane arts. On his 15th birthday, Malkia was giving Thelvar a display of all of his various wands and trinkets that he had when a wand of magic missiles exploded in his face, killing him instantly and throwing Thelvar across the room and against a wall, which knocked him unconscious for a few minutes. When he came to, there, near the scattered remains of his uncle, was the same apparition he saw when his grandfather died. No, father died, I was right. Thelvar poured himself to his feet and fled the room and the house. He was found several hours later under a jetty near the docks, shaking and crying. Thelvar and his mother Adriel decided to leave Hadar's Folly without appointing a new steward, instead leaving the day-to-day running of the now medium-sized fishing town in the hands of the newly elected mayor. They took up residence in Waterdeep, purchasing a modest house in the North Ward, opposite Herrett's Fine Pastries on Sasmoran Street, which is literally his house is right here, if you can see where I'm pinging on the map.
Yeah. Can you do it just a couple more times so I can get it on screen? Boom, there you go. That's your neighborhood, okay. Oh, very close to the City of the Dead. Nice.
Yes, very close.
You and the dead, man. You and the dead.
Look, the City of the Dead is just a nice park with a lot of content in it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thelvar decided that he wished to attend the Neverwinter Academy, where he threw himself not only into arcane studies, but also martial. He graduated at the year of 20 and set out to become a monster hunter in order to try and further his knowledge of strange creatures and the occult in an effort to end his family curse. And finally take up his role as Lord Mordragane of Hadar's Folly. Unfortunately, he was barely 3 months on his journey when he received news of his mother's death. He immediately returned to Waterdeep for her funeral and has decided to remain, for the time, to take care of his mother's affairs and plan his next move, which brings us up to the start of the story.
Okay, great. Now, just so I'm clear about the classes, Clue is a rogue. Is that right?
Yep.
He's starting off as a first level rogue. And do you have a subclass at this point, or at least one in mind?
I have one. Well, there's two I might go for, but they don't happen on level 2. It's either Mastermind or Inquisitive, depending on how his character goes.
Okay. So you're not like fixed. You're willing to let the story kind of shape and things. Okay. And
I mean,
yeah.
those are the two mains I'm thinking about. If something weird happens, an arcane trickster for some reason becomes more, I can also do that. I'm open.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And then for Thelvar, he's technically like he's sort of a half wizard, half fighter or whatever. Yeah, what's he like when he gets into a scrape?
Yeah, he's a half wizard, half fighter, so he can essentially dual wield sword and spell at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he can cast a spell and attack on the same turn, and once he gets to level 2, he's able to deliver touch spells through his sword, so he gets the sword damage plus the spell damage.
Ooh, nice.
Wait, does it technically mean you can do cure wounds via your sword?
Technically, yes.
You get an extra 5 foot or whatever the longsword reaches, 8 foot or whatever. Okay, Kelsey, your character. Want to tell us a bit about Mara?
So Mara hails from a family of monks. So basically, her mother was a monk, her father was a monk, and they all practice the way of mercy. So they're basically a bunch of monk healers.
Oh, okay.
I had to do some research to make sure that I could get this to happen. Because I was like, crap, we don't have a healer. So for Mara, so she's, I think, going to be the youngest in the group. She's about 17 or 18. And she's run away from home. So she's not from Waterdeep.
Oh, all right.
And the reason she's run away from home is she's starting to hear a voice. And this voice is extremely angry and violent. And basically is going against everything she's trained to basically practice. So like she's basically supposed to be a healer, supposed to be being responsible for taking care of other people's well-being, and instead she wants to basically kill and hurt and do damage to people for no reason. And so she's like, okay, I can't stay home, I have to run away. And so that's where like she ends up in Waterdeep. And so right now she just has her monk weapons on her, and that's in like just her basic pack stuff, and that's about it. So
okay, all right. So very much a newcomer. She hasn't into town. Okay, all right. Very exciting. And yeah, you're playing a straight up monk, first level.
First level monk. And as the story progresses, you will be introduced to the voice that is in her head.
Okay. All right. So since you're not sure where you've lived so far in Waterdeep, I think maybe if I gave you guys access to Volo's and Sheridan. Is that how you say it? In there. In Kyringdon.
In Kyridian.
In Kyridian. I learned a new word. The one that says a long history in brief, I think we can kind of skip that one. It tells you a bit more about the city of Waterdeep. And Waterdeep, it kind of comes across as a little bit like a medieval Italian city-state, like a Florence or a Venice, in that but it's not quite run by the mob. It's actually like a plutocracy. Wealthy sort of mix of wealthy aristocrats, but also the merchants have quite a lot of influence. Their main concern is keeping order. They're not about rights, but because they want order, they've got a pretty honest city guard and city watch and justice system that hasn't been corrupted. So this is like they're able to manage it. So you keep to have people able to keep the society stable enough to keep everyone working and doing trade, and that's pretty much where they want to keep things. They're they're not interested in like I said, like democratic rights and how people feel. It's more like they'll pick security over freedoms in that way. By the way, if someone I'm getting a little bit of an echo. I don't know if someone's got speakers on or whatever, but just FYI. Okay, that helps. Thank you. A little bit softer. So you can go ahead and read a long history in brief. It talks about how the structure of Waterdeep's political power came into being, and that is they have this sort of council of people. There are the Open Lord. There's an Open Lord of Waterdeep who is the one public figure who sits on the council of masked lords. The idea of the masked lords is that they should be able to dispense like policy and justice and administration, but because nobody knows who they are, they can't be influenced. But there's one person who does goes around with their face open, and we'll come into meeting with that character later. So that's basically the structure of the city. But under that, even though you have the city watch, you of course have things happening inside the city. So if we you guys won't have this part, but let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the factions first. Factions and guilds. So I gotta scroll up to the character's name. With Thelvar being a mage, and also being a resident, for instance, Thelvar would have already been expected to become a member of like the Mages Guild. So it's called the Watchful Order of Magists and Protectors. And anyone who does magic or comes into the city and looks like they have magic on them are required to register. You're allowed, you pay a fee to become a guild member. But then as a guild member, you get access to the best equipment and the right ingredients. Whereas if you're practicing magic outside the guild, you might not be able to get the ingredients you need. You might turn up and they won't sell you certain products. That's the way. There's no saying law you have to be in a guild. They just make your life terribly difficult if you're not. And if you want to get along with other mages in the society, you're going to join the guild. So,
sounds fair.
Yep. And you should know that most of Waterdeep has guilds. If there's something that you need done in the town, there's probably a guild for it. Everything from like a baker's guild, a carpenter's guild, a seller's guild, a council of farmers, a dung sweeper's guild, the order of cobblers and corvisors, the order of master shipwrights. So if you're going to be getting a job somewhere, like if you I think the rule is you have to have the skill to join the guild. And if you have the skill, you really should be in the guild. So they won't take you and train you, but if you have the right tools, they'll let you operate or get a job or whatever. And again, it's usually like 25 gold per year to be a member of the guild, and then affords you fellowship with your other guild members and cooperation within that union, almost like in some ways.
Yeah. Thelvar will also likely to have some sort of relationship with Merchants Guild.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For the trade out of Hadar's Folly.
Oh, yes. Good point. I think, yes. So can you, we'll have to look up the guild, but yes, I'm sure there is some sort of Merchants Guild. I've got it's alphabetical here, so if it's like something else. But yes, in the market area, there would definitely be some sort of Merchants Guild. So you can put that in there too, because you might end up having to know somebody in the guild, or you can use that resource when you guys go shopping to kind of pull out your membership card, be like, yeah, can I get the friends and family discount kind of thing. So we'll follow up on that. For Clue, you said he's kind of done different bits and bobs. What things might he have done that would maybe qualify? Does he do like manual labor or any kind of things that would be organized labor traditionally? Oh, for Clue? Yeah, you said he kind of gets by trading information, right? Hi, Nadine.
Did we lose him?
I don't know. I'm trying to look on the thing and run. Hopefully, it's just a connection issue. Oh, still there. Just can't hear you. You're not muted.
Hello.
We could hear you a second ago.
Uh,
Oh, you're back.
Yep. My internet just decided to not work for a second. Okay, can you read the question real quick?
Oh, of course. We are looking for connections you might have with various city guilds. And I think, I'm trying to remember all the details. You said he got some information. Might you have worked, in a bar somewhere? Might you have worked unloading things on the dock to get information? Are there any things that you can think about that would fit your character's background where he might have the kind of links to the city?
Well, originally, like in the in the field ward, he was, well, like many there, he was mostly making his money through, theft and blackmail. Then, as he got more into the city, he did do a couple of odd jobs into dock ward to, like, kind of ingratiate himself, unloading some ships and stuff. But most of his money he makes through, essentially detective work, just like people hiring to find information on like competitors and so forth, or just find a way to influence people or find objects they couldn't get legally, they don't have the contacts for.
Okay, maybe, do you think it would make sense that maybe you might have contacts with people in the Scriveners, Scribes, and Clerks Guild, people who have to do paperwork, people who need paperwork found or forged or things like that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe not a member, but you might know people who, who call on your services if they need something. Okay.
Yeah, because there's no Thieves Guild in Waterdeep.
Nope.
No, that's as close as you're going to get. Yeah. And Mara, when she's she is not doing her monk stuff, does she have an idea of what she would do when she got to Waterdeep? Was she looking to just kind of get any job? Was she planning on doing street art or something to earn money? What was her plan?
She legit just ran away. Okay. Like, she has zero plan. Like, she just ended up in Waterdeep. She just kind of was like, city.
Okay. All right. What city. Did she do? Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So she's in the city. Right.
Yeah. Basically, think like 1980s runaway kid movie, or like that's basically what Mara did. She was not smart about what she was doing. She was just like, I have to get away from my family because there's a voice in my head telling me to kill all the people.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I think then, you're going to be the ingenue of the group, but that'll be fine. Okay. So I think there's a little bit of connection there. It makes sense. Even if you don't end up using a lot of guild contacts, you understand that that's part of the world and that's something you can draw on. And use your connections in that way. And so maybe at some point, like I said, there's a lot of investigation, a lot of allyship potential here. So the other thing I want to talk to you about in Waterdeep are the factions. Now, in addition to the way that D&D has your character and your subclass and you're able to level up, you get some experience and you become better at being a monk, there's also the ability within the Waterdeep narrative here to become more famous with certain of the city's factions. And just like in D&D, you have to do some things to get experience to level up. In order to become renowned, you have to do some stuff for people with power. So what I wanted to do is, excuse me while I clear my throat, was to introduce you to the factions of Waterdeep. If you guys have lived in Waterdeep, if two of you have lived in Waterdeep, you will definitely know what I'm about to tell you. I'm not going to tell you any game spoiling things, but just enough where, like, if you saw a Harper's badge, you would know where to place a Harper in the city's politics. Mm-hmm. And for Mara, maybe these are things you've heard about Waterdeep, like different factions within Waterdeep, these that you're not enough aware of. You might not know a lot about them, but you know they exist. Kind of like the way you know about like Italian mobsters, in the 80s or whatever. So, right. One faction of Waterdeep and what is everybody's race and class again? Or their race?
Human.
Tiefling.
Okay, 2 humans and a tiefling. All right. You know that there's some sort of, you've heard rumors of a drow faction, but you're none of you guys are drow, so you don't know too much about it, other than like Waterdeep does have this sort of like group of drows who are connected in Waterdeep, but that's about it. One that would be more common to people in the city is the Emerald Enclave. And characters who are interested in nature or the natural order. Those are the kinds of people that the Emerald Enclave likes to draw into and work with. Now, it's generally druids and rangers, like nobody here, but, you might bump into somebody from the Emerald Enclave, and at least you have a little sense of where their politics are coming from. And so I guess the next one is a kind of elite city force. It's called Force Grey. It's a more open faction. Force Grey is sort of connected with the city itself. It's a lot of people who have joined Force Grey have actually come through their recruiting. It's like a baseball team where they've got like a recruiting system, a farm system. You have to come through. It's called Grey Hands. And if you are a Grey Hand and you get some renown, you might be recruited into the elite Force Grey. And it's really tied with one of the city's important security persons, who you'll know is Varja Safar. You recognize her name. She's quite political. So they aren't like a secret society so much as they're kind of like the elite units when the city wants to deal with something without putting all of their official people in it. They'll send out a group of adventurers who have been pulled through the system, part of Force Grey, to kind of go handle maybe a diplomatic mission or something else. I mentioned the Harpers before. The Harpers is another group you guys might bump into or even be interested in getting connected with. Harpers are really interested in keeping power out of the hands of evil tyrants. They're a little bit of a resistance movement, but they're not like a terrorist group. They more operate through information. So possibly Clue would either be looking to become a member of the Harpers or know friends who are in the Harpers already, because they generally deal with dealing with stuff behind the scenes and moving information around and that kind of thing. And so, and bards and wizards are welcome as well. So, then there is kind of similar to the Force Grey, but on a wider scale. There's the Lord's Alliance, and you have to be a citizen of Waterdeep, or Waterdavian, as they call them. Doesn't matter if you've got a criminal record, if you've got some skills, that's fine. But the Lord's Alliance are people who work on behalf of like the city's wider politics. So they would be actually working for Waterdeep's Open Lord, Laryl Silverhand. She's the person who's like the open ruler of the city at this time. Another one that might align sometimes with a group like the Harpers is the Order of the Gauntlet. If you're a non-evil character, you can join it. Clerics, monks, and paladins are especially welcome in this group. And their mission is to seek out and destroy evil before it starts to gain a foothold. So they too are kind of like a group of do-gooders, but they collaborate and help each other and work on missions and things like that. Then we get into the darker side of the city. So Clue might also have some links. The first one I want to talk to you guys about is the Xanathar Guild. It doesn't technically have a guild status, but anyone can kind of join it. They are kind of a pretty dodgy group. If you want something knocked over, if you want somebody murdered, they're definitely like the most violent, evil group in the city, and they're trying to organize themselves to get power and money. And then also on the not great side, but more like money laundering and smuggling, not like open right contracts to kill you, but they'll smuggle your stuff into the city so you can avoid the taxes. And those are the Zentarum. It's also called the Black Network. And they're a shadow organization that trades in mercenaries and goods, including weapons, for profit. So they are also like one of the crime bosses, or the more like the seedy side of the city. And over the course of this, you might be approached by members of the factions who will offer you opportunities to do things. And if you guys want to take the time, and they're basically doing side quests. As you do side quests and you are successful, don't come back dead. That doesn't help your renown. But you get a certain amount of basically status inside the organization. And as you rise within the ranks, you can call on the organization to help you maybe come up with some NPCs if you need some muscle on a job, or to help pull in some information on somebody. But it's up to you how much you want to do, and also if you're approached by somebody from one of the factions, how you want to handle it. So, all right, I've given you some information on the guilds. We've talked a bit about the city. If I can very quickly take you through the map, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about how you guys might know each other. What are some opportunities where maybe you've come in contact? Maybe with Mara it will be a little bit more difficult, but there is a possibility, I think, based on an NPC that Thelvar knows that you might also want to draw on. So maybe we could connect you through there. Very quickly, if we want to go up, there's the start of the city starts at the Field Ward. That's not technically inside Waterdeep. You don't pay tax. You don't pay a residency tax if you live there. And then you've got the North Ward, which is where Thelvar is. It's also a pretty posh part of the city. A lot of wealthy people live there. The Sea Ward is not the docks part of it. I don't really know what happens so much in the Sea Ward. Haven't read too much about that yet.
Mostly temples and like the big village nobles.
Okay.
It's like the really posh part of town.
Oh, the really, like, even the really the aristocrats live there. Like the merchants live in the North Ward, but if you can move up to the Sea Ward, it's even better. Awesome. We get down there to the market area, and then the Castle Ward, which is connected over another, I think, pretty nice part of town, and then the City of the Dead. As you move a little farther south, it gets a little less nice until you're sort of in the Dock Ward, which is the roughest part of town, and the Southern Ward. Not the South Ward, the Southern Ward, named in part because it's southerly, but also because a lot of Southerners live down there. And it's a pretty big city. They've got carriages. They've also got like a public transportation system. If you don't want to walk, let's say, from the North Ward down to the docks, Dock Ward, you can jump on public transportation, or you can get a cab as well to hire to take you around. All right. So, yeah, thinking about what you guys were saying, it seems like there might be a possibility that Clue and Thelvar have crossed paths in the past, I would think.
I mean, seems not unlikely. If he at some point needed information from anywhere that wasn't easy for a normal person to get it, he might have run into Clue.
Or you might have worked for his uncle or father or grandfather.
I mean, Clue isn't that old, so I severely doubt he's going to be working for his grandfather, but might have done a job for.
Yeah, possibly done a job or two for Thelvar's mother.
Possible.
Okay. And Clue's motivation in life, like, is he looking to continue to move up? He's already worked his way up from the Field Ward up to the docks. Is he looking to become more famous and to become more rich, or what are his motivations?
Well, his main motivation is the fact that he generally just likes to be the smartest person in the room and will like continuously like try and one up himself.
Okay.
But at the meantime, he does like. Ideally, he would like be like working for some noble somewhere on like the higher echelons of politics, just like trying to work in like a bigger arena, let's say.
Is he kind of like the master, like the Lord of Spiders or the Whisperers or something kind of thing?
Yeah, that's like his dream job, let's say, but he's not even close.
Right. But he would be then like aware of things like that when you see a noble, you want to have a good relationship with them, you want to like make a good impression, you need to kind of play both sides of the fence and have a little foot in everything kind of thing. He's like, he's aiming to be, quite savvy politically and Smart. Okay. Besides living to a ripe old age, what else does Thelvar want out of life?
Well, his most immediate aim is to find the source of and rid his family of whatever the nature of this curse is, so he can reclaim his birthright as Lord of Hadar's Folly. Other than that, I don't think he's thought beyond that, because, yeah, if he doesn't figure it out, he's going to be dead.
Right, right. And would adventuring be a way for him to build up the skills in order to fight the fight he needs to prepare himself for?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Mara is already been brought up to take care of herself. She's already, trained to be self-sufficient and all of that kind of thing. One thing I did think of, if I can find it, is that there is inside of Waterdeep a kind of an ecumenical temple that isn't for any particular god, it's for all gods. And maybe one place she could turn to is there if she wanted to go and have a place to sleep and be safe and kind of get her mind together. Because one of the people that they could recommend that she go and talk to would be Obaya Ude, oftentimes hanging out in the Yawning Portal, who might be able to help put her on her feet. Does that sound like something Mara would do?
It sounds like something Mara would do. Does not sound like something the voice would be happy about. Right.
And for her, is it a constant struggle, or is it something that kind of pops up every once in a while and has been popping up more often?
It's been popping up more often, and as she has gotten, as she has run away, the voice is becoming less of a voice and more of an entity.
Okay, and for her, does it happen just sort of at random times, or is it like when she's fighting, does it come out more? If she's threatened, does it come out more? What is it?
If she is threatened, so if she is in a position where she has to choose fight or flight, she is at this juncture where she would most likely have chosen flight. She is now choosing fight. So it's changing her it's slowly changing her personality. Okay. So if that makes sense. So there's the way this is going is she's slowly changing. Like the reason she ran away is she's noticing that she's slowly changing. Her personality is slowly changing. Is slowly being altered.
Okay.
And so she's slowly no longer becoming the monk she is being trained to be. She is becoming something else.
Okay. Now, one thing that maybe we could think about for setting up for the session one, because I need to get all of you guys in the same place for the story to start. But maybe she was told while she was, sat in a corner, maybe someone took pity on her, or maybe she asked. But in the North Ward, there is a place called Holy Hands House. And that is a place of worship for any deities. So it's completely ecumenical. And if she needed to go someplace, she could maybe go there to start as a place to look for stuff. Yeah.
The voice would be okay with that.
Okay. Yeah, so that would be maybe a resource that we can use. And then at that place, what will happen is that they'll recommend that, if you remember the NPCs that we talked about, they're going to recommend, and actually can I change it? I think it's in the handout that I gave you. So I can't make it look on the map, but in your handouts, you should have one on NPCs, which I was going to get to now. So we've got two of the characters who at least have a passing relationship, like you guys have seen each other, maybe you would recognize each other if you saw each other. The named no. Yeah. So, yes. It's under Yawning Portal, Friendly Faces, and Obaya Ude is the person she's a kindly cleric who spends time there to kind of like be a resource to adventurers and people in need. That's sort of like her outreach mission location. Okay.
Yeah, it's I would say it's likely that she could have put the two of us in contact with each other, being that Thelvar sees spirits and dead people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a voice in their head.
Mm-hmm. You can kind of take her under your wing and see if there's something going on, if it's a possession or whatever else. Oh, that's nice. Okay, all right. So yeah, you guys know each other through Ubaya. And yeah, if you need a place to stay, you can always stay in the North Ward at the Holy Hands house, so you're not sleeping on the streets, or you don't know where you're.
I would, and the voice would definitely be okay with Holy Hands.
Okay, cool. All right, and also, this was going to be one of Thelvar's PCs as well, right? You talked about the connection that Thelvar was going to have with Obaya.
Obaya befriended Thelvar's mother while Thelvar was off at the Neverwinter Academy, and they met at the funeral because Thelvar's mother was essentially tapping her for help in finding a way to end the curse.
Okay, excellent. And then for Clue, did you have a chance to look at any of the NPCs stand out for you as to someone that you might would fit the relationship with your character? So I know it's like very limited information, but as you get to know people, you can.
I had an idea for Yarga. Well, I'll run past you now. The idea that maybe, considering she's also an elf orc, that maybe she also like grew up in like the field ward, like along Blue, and they had like radically different approaches, but they like butted heads a lot. But at the same time, they have like unspoken respect for each other, even though it's really hard to tell when they interact.
Yeah, that's perfect. I like that idea a lot. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense with your character's background that he would know a half-orc mercenary. Totally. All right. Okay. I think, unless there is something else, there's just a little bit like gold pieces. Like that money has different names in the game. It's like nibs and
Nibs, shards, dragons.
Yes. But yeah, and
I've forgotten what the bronze piece is. I know the platinum piece is.
Oh, it's in the book.
Arbor coins.
Yeah, it is in. Is it Wards of Waterdeep City Splendors?
Yeah, nib is a copper. A shard is 10 nibs, which would be the same as a silver.
Yeah.
Then you have Tal, which is brass. Well, then dragon, sun, and harbor moon. But
Yes.
not likely to get that amount of money that fast.
No. Yeah, so if I slip and just say gold pieces and silver pieces, but yeah, I'll try to remember to use the various names of the coins around there. Yeah.
Well, they are the colloquial names within Neverwinter.
Yes. All right. So, yeah, I think that was kind of it. I feel that now I know a little bit more about your characters, also your motivations, and where you see them going, or at least, oh yeah, handout, nib, handout, shard. There's like as pictures of them. I can, if I would have just looked a little bit farther down the screen, it's actually on the screen I'm looking at in my additional art section. A little bit more about the game itself. So there are going to be there are going to be maps. We'll be doing map movement for the battles, but a lot of it will be theater of the mind as well. So, for instance, I'm changing your vision now to where you're going to be starting out, which is the Yawning Portal. This is the picture that they give you for the book. Anybody who is interested, if you look down in the far right-hand corner, number 85 is Matt Mercer. They put him in the book because he helped advise on it. But this is where we're going to start tomorrow or next week, Sunday. And we'll bring. You guys have now some connections. You've got NPCs that you know who are going to be at the bar. You're not total strangers. Some of you actually like. Do we? I think maybe before we leave, just to again kind of bring the party together a little bit more. So for Mara and Thelvar, can you think of like something that the two of you have already done in the city, where you went out and had a little bit of an adventure?
Part of me really wants to say that Mara stabbed a guy, but that's not what happened.
Did you have like a nice day shopping in the trades ward, or did you go and do some sightseeing?
Did you go to the City of the Dead, maybe? Go wander around the cemeteries?
Thelvar would most likely have done that. One or more of the spirits have probably persuaded him into there.
For Mara, she's mostly she's playing tourist right now. So she's just kind of trying not to like make herself like draw attention to herself, but at the same time just kind of looking around and just kind of bringing it in, because she's never been in a city as big as Waterdeep, because she a country girl. So she's just kind of like, look, it's a city. So she's trying to be inconspicuous, but at the same time, city.
Being very excited about it too, like trying not to look like a tourist, but at the same time, totally looking like a tourist.
Exactly, and then also trying not to look like a crazy person, as like she is a crazy person right now. Anyway.
Yeah. So I guess you're both in the North Ward. You both live in that area. You're staying at the Holy Hands house, and you're living in the ward. So yeah, I mean, you guys to just take a day for you to like get a bit of an assessment on her, Thelvar, and also just to go to your favorite part, the City of the Dead. That was that was your day out, and maybe you're gonna meet up again, this time in a different part of the city, because you want to show Mara everything. You're going to be meeting up at the Yawning Portal, which is much closer to the dock ward. Okay, cool. And then also the same for Thelvar and Clue. When we talked a little bit about possibilities that you might have had some interactions, but can we get a more specific? Did you guys decide on which member of the family might have hired someone to get some information or to deliver something that was a sensitive package? Was your family into any dodgy shit? Was Thelvar's family into dodgy shit?
Not that Thelvar knows about. His mother may have dabbled in some of the more dodgy elements, trying to find answers about the curse.
Oh, okay. Might that have required like acquiring some unusual materials, or scrying magic?
Yeah, that's all very possible.
Would Clue know where to get stuff that you couldn't get from the guilds?
I mean, he would have some connections with the gray market, so to speak. Yeah, definitely. He knows people who are willing to acquire things that shouldn't be talked about in a polite public.
Got it. Right. Yes. Maybe you've had a chance before Thelvar left for school, and his mother was still running things right before you left for school. Maybe Clue was someone you kind of saw her having meetings with in a side room, and the two of you would make eye contact, but haven't actually talked. Maybe there's a mystery there you can pull out what she might have been working on.
Yep, that sounds good.
All right, great. Well, that's good, mission accomplished. But next time we're gonna start for reals. And yes, I can like a little, not really spoiler alert, but you're going to be starting in the Yawning Portal, which is one of the more famous bars in Waterdeep. And hold on to your hats. It's going to be a bumpy ride. So
And I should have Thelvar's coloured picture finished by then.
that'd be cool. Yeah, do you guys have any questions for me? A couple things, I guess. It's going to be milestone-based experience. I don't want to have to keep track of, if you do something really clever and it moves the story along, I think that should be part of the reward. So rather than keeping track of experience at the end of sort of different sections, if you're still alive, you get to level up. You won't, if you do side missions for factions, it doesn't have to be every single one of you has to be a member. Like one of you could be a member of a faction and enlist your friends to help. So if people in the group are associated with different factions, as long as that doesn't create any tensions within the group, it's not like you're all in it, all together. So you each have your own independent relationships. But if two of you join one, that's also fine. So yes, when you get enough renown to have moved up in a faction, if you guys decide to go that way, then I'll let you know. You'll get a message from somebody and they'll explain what your new title is and what your new benefits are, or if you have to do a mission to get it, or however I decide it's going to go. So if you do things without a lot of side missions, by the end of this adventure, you should be just to level 5. Like you just made level 5 or you're about to be on the cusp of it. If you do quite a lot of side missions, you should be able to get basically up to, I would say, almost level 6, so that you would, if we continued on with these characters, you would level up to the start of the next section. If you
Good.
flanking will be a +2 bonus, so if we will have tokens, so you can do that. Giving someone a healing potion is a bonus action, not a full action. And yeah, if there are other questions that you guys have for me, you can drop them in the chat, in the DM group, or of course ask here. So, but do you have any questions before we leave tonight?
No.
No, can't think of anything.
All right. I hope that, I've never done a session 0 before. I only ever watched one, but I hope you guys feel like your characters are a bit richer now and that you kind of come in with a bit more of a sense of the world that you're in and the characters that you guys will be playing. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, for the mind fuck that's gonna be Mara. I'm really sorry.
Close some stuff.
Oh no, I'll give you details once we get off the live stream, so that you guys understand what's going on.
Yeah, you're going to have to explain the code of Waterdeep and how the city guard really doesn't like mass murder.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons. Yeah, I'll explain stuff.
All right. Well, so basically we're starting at 7 o'clock my time, whatever this was your time, on Sundays now. And for the foreseeable future, it should be, like I said, it could be 12 sessions, or if you guys want to do a lot of side missions and really become quite renowned within Waterdeep, it can go, maybe 20 or whatever we need. So yes, until next time, until next week. Thank you everyone for coming along and participating. This was fun. And I look forward to our first session next week. Yeah, goodbye from me and goodbye from the party. Say goodbye, party.
Bye, party.
Bye, party.
Bye, party. Bye, party. Okay. Cool.